everybody. Dan Illman and Mike Beer, the DRF race of the day for Friday, August the 18th. Race number 7 at Del Mar. It's the CTT and TOC stakes. We're going 1 3/8 for fillies and mares on the turf. Let's take a peek at this field. Mike, it's a pretty wide open race. We've got the last 2 winners of this race in the field. The 9 Sister O'Toole back to defend her crown. The 6 Neige Blanche won this in 2021. But you've got some solid runners as well with some upside, including the 7 Ilara, the 3 Oakhurst.
Yeah, you can make cases for other horses, to be sure, but I certainly felt like Neige Blanche was probably the horse to beat in here, Dan, just because she shows up just about every time, and this is a great distance for her. Sister O'Toole, I'm a fan. I like her stretching back out here second off the layoff.
Let's throw up the Timeform US pace projector. I'm not expecting a lot of speed in this race. Paris Peacock, the number 5, is expected to be on the lead. She hasn't been on the lead in her 4 starts for trainer Tom Proctor, but she is stretching out in distance, as is the number 1 Symphony Perfect. There are no blazers in here. I do think the 6 Neige Blanche has the sort of tactical speed at a longer distance. We've seen her go wire to wire in races like the Possibly Perfect, and I won't be surprised at all if they go right to the front.
I felt that way about her as well, Dan. I mean, she's just not the type who's going to be compromised no matter how this pace shakes out. If it's fast, it's okay with her. If it's a little slower, she'll be right up close. So that's actually a big advantage for her in here. I also felt similarly about maybe the horse who's her main rival in here, the 4 Queen of the Temple. She's a very tactical kind of horse, and she always shows up.
The 1 Symphony Perfect's going to be stretching out for the first time in her career, and I found it very interesting because she raced extensively overseas to begin her career, and they never were interested in stretching her out past 7/8 of a mile. She's won in the States at a mile for trainer Michael McCarthy, but now they're going to stretch her all the way out to 1 3/8. It's got to be considered somewhat of an experiment.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, oftentimes with horses like this, though, Dan, I mean, she's been over here. It's only 4 starts, and she's 1 for 4 in North America, but it's not like her form is stellar since she's gotten here in those, sort of mile races. So you take a shot here, you stretch them out and see if they can just match up a little more favorably with the longer distance horses who, typically aren't the best turf horses around. She's got her work cut out for her here stretching out, but I don't think it's a bad idea to try it.
She finished ahead of a next out stakes winner on the turf at Santa Rosa. That horse earned an 85 Beyer speed figure up in Northern California when a rallying 5th into a fast pace in the Oceanitas, but stretching out in distance, as we saw in the Timeform US pace projector, she can get closer to the pace. The 2 is Happy Happy, and they're asking a lot from Happy Happy. 6 starts, she's still a maiden. She faced winners last time out. She was beaten by Ilara. It was a race that didn't have a ton of pace. She kind of mid-moved into it, sensing that the pace was slow, and then they all of a sudden started to sprint away from her. I think she ran okay to be 3rd. She's got to do better.
Agreed. I thought she ran fine in that race, but she didn't really do anything that made me want to bet her back here as they move her up in class again as a maiden.
Oakhurst ran well, going 1 1/4 last year, when 4th, only beaten a length in the American Oaks, and she came off of a significant layoff last time out to score, going 1 1/8 in a second level allowance at Del Mar. And we see her in between horses here, and things are going to work out. She's going to ease to the outside under Umberto Rispoli, and she's going to close this field down. She took advantage of a hot pace, but let's give her some extra points to be able to go a demanding 1 1/8 off the layoff.
I liked the effort from her just because she still did have a lot of work to do. Once she got that seam to come through there at about the 8th pull, she still had some work to do, Dan. I like the finish that she put in to close that race down. Overall, though, she just got a terrific trip and ride in that race and maybe took advantage a little bit. There's still some upside here, though. She's got a little bit of talent, far from impossible in this race.
The 4 is Queen of the Temple, and she's very, very consistent. She just doesn't seem to win very often. She's finished 2nd in half of her 14 lifetime starts. Now, she did win going 1.5 miles in the Santa Barbara 2 starts back, and last time out, she just missed in a blanket 3-horse finish where she was forced 3 wide, and the winner, Neige Blanche, was able to save just a bit more ground.
Yeah, I mean, that is one way to look at that race. I mean, if you feel like there's not that much separating these 2 horses who are the 2 favorites on the morning line for this race, I mean, you could easily go back and pull the replay yourself and decide what you think about it. But this horse was on the outside the entire way. Neige Blanche got to save an awful lot of ground in there, and it was pretty close at the end.
Paris Peacock is up next, the number 5. She raced a mile and a quarter once overseas. She ran an okay second. Now she's going to stretch out again, second start of the layoff. She was beaten last time out by Oakhurst. It was a situation where I needed to see a little bit more. She took some money in that race, and maybe she needed one off of the layoff, Mike, but she was kind of flat when it counted.
Yeah, I didn't like the race that she ran last time when they stretched her out in distance a little bit for that race. And it's not like, listen, layoff, I guess. It's not like she was away for a long time, less than 2 months from race to race in there. And I just didn't really feel like she had some kind of big excuse that day.
Neige Blanche won this race in 2021. She does have the tactical speed to get close, and she worked out a perfect trip when winning the possibly perfect last time out. Her first race off of a lengthy layoff. So again, you want to give credit. She's going a mile and a quarter here off of a layoff. She sat a really nice pocket trip. She's going to get out and split horses. On the far outside, the number 2 is Queen of the Temple. It's close at the wire. Neige Blanche gutted it out.
Yeah, she's very game here. She is going to get the job done. Again, it is close. Again, you can go back and maybe say that the trips made the difference. I don't know about you, Dan. I didn't really look at it that way. I felt like Queen of the Temple had her chance in that race, even though she was on the outside, and she finished right where she wanted to finish in second there. I just feel like overall, this horse is probably a little bit better among the 2 favorites.
The 7 Ilara began her North American campaign over in the East Coast for trainer Christophe Clement, but her first start for Phil D'Amato out in Southern California paid dividends in this race. It was at a mile and 3/8. It was at Del Mar. She got right up close to the pace. She attacks at just the right time. I like this burst of speed to immediately open up on this field inside the 3/16.
I like this too. I think she's a very convincing winner of this race. She did get a good trip in here overall, but I just like the way she finished it off. And what I really like about it, Dan, is this is what she looked like back in New York last year when Clement had her in all those races. She really finishes the last furlong or so of her races. She has a nice burst of speed in her. I think that's going to serve her very well in a race like this as they stretch her back out. This distance is not supposed to be a problem for her.
My favorite daughter stretched all the way out in her most recent start. She finished second in the race we just saw with Ilara. It was nice to see that this distance is not an issue for her. I think there are some class concerns. She's been sort of tooling around in claiming races. This is a pretty big step up in class.
It is. She ran okay last time. So you're right. Maybe that's just enough to get you to stay on board for one more race here, because she's going to be a good price again. She was only second best last time, though.
Sister O'Toole won this race last year. Obviously, she likes the surface. Her most recent start at Saratoga, while an allowance race, A, it was her first start off of a lengthy layoff, and B, that allowance race, that classes up very well with the horses she's going to be facing on Friday. The third place finisher is a grade 1 placed horse trained by Chad Brown, who came back to win a salty allowance at Saratoga with a 93 buyer. I have a feeling Graham Motion has circled this race all throughout the summer. They got the prep into her, and here she is.
Yeah, that's how I looked at it too. I mean, you can just even go back to the beginning of her career. She just got way better as soon as Motion stretched her out as a 3-year-old. It feels like they were prepping her last time going short. She was last at the top of the stretch, and she made a little bit of a run there. This is what she wants to do, Dan. She wants to get stretched back out to this distance. As you've already mentioned, she won this race last year.
Before we get to our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time for our Friday race of the day. Mike's going with Ilara. This is a horse that has done very, very well in New York for trainer Christophe Clement. Looked good for Phil D'Amato and just looks ready to step into the stakes ranks.
That's what I thought. I liked her first start for D'Amato last time. I liked that win. I liked her form last year over in New York, Dan, too. I thought she was a little underrated when Clement had her. She's 5-1 on the line. I want to bet her at that price.
I've been burned before by Queen of the Temple, but I do like her tactical speed along with Neige Blanche. As Mike mentioned, she can get close to the pace. They sort of took a hold of her leaving the gate last time out, and she ended up behind Neige Blanche. Maybe this time around they'll be on equal footing when they turn for home. 7-6-9-4 for Mike. I'll go Queen of the Temple. 4-6-9-3. It's the Friday race of the day at beautiful Del Mar. Good luck.